Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of the Triangle Area SQL Server User Groups, Business Intelligence, Data Science, Artificial Intelligence, and however many other fun acronyms we can pack into one SIG today. So, with us tonight, we have James Reeves, who's going to talk to us about Power Query and all the fun that's involved in that. It is a little bit late for James, so instead of me vamping for a long time, I'm just going to hand it right over and say, please take it away.
Thank you very much. Yeah, a little late. It's 11 p.m. here in the UK, so been a long day. If I start to waffle, someone give me a virtual knock, and I'll carry on. So yeah, today we're doing the wonders of Power Query, because I really do think it is wonderful in terms of the sheer breadth of capability it has, and how it can make data analysis and data engineering accessible to so many people. Um, the idea of today's session is to show. I'll cover some of the basics, but quite quickly, and I want to get out of PowerPoint and move into a Power Query interface, so we can actually see what it looks like and play with it. Um, as we discussed just a second ago off camera, if anyone wants to ask questions on Twitch, Kevin's going to relay them to me. We'll do them as and when they come. I've got enough content to fill the hour. If there's no questions, we'll probably get through all of it. If there's lots of questions, we'll get through what we get through. And I'm happy to provide the files or any follow up if you want to get me on LinkedIn. That would be ideal. So I've split it up roughly into three, which is data transformations, which is where you'll get started with at the beginning, really, when you want to get your data into Power Query and do something with it. When you want to get a little bit more beyond what you can do with the clicky, draggy, droppy interface, then we'll start looking at the M language. Now, as far as I know, M doesn't stand for anything. It has been purported to be mashup for the mashup language, but I don't think anyone's ever proved that's the case. I think it's just called M. If anyone does know the history, I would love to know it. We're also going to cover performance tips. Apologies, all my spellings are in UK English, so feel free to change your S's to Z's wherever you see them. I think I've actually optimized with a Z there and optimized at the bottom of an S, so maybe I've mixed and matched just to keep you on your toes. Right. So, who am I? Because everyone has to do this at the beginning. That's me. I'm James Reeves. I go by SQL Sestrian. I've got a company called Data Quality Limited. If you're interested, look me up. I'm always free to chat. I've got a top mate link, which is on my LinkedIn profile. Half an hour, anytime anyone wants to have a chat, whether it's new to career or particular problem, or just want to have a chat. I'm a mental health advocate, and yeah, always happy to chat and look after the community. So yeah, one of those methods. Reach out, email, Twitter, LinkedIn, and happy to chat. Try and make that as quick as possible because I always find those painful. I just want to give a quick overview of Power Query. I mean, how old is it? Has it been around for? Obviously, Power BI is just celebrating its 10th anniversary. But how old is Power Query? Well, it actually goes back to 2010, and it was originally known as Data Explorer, and it was an add-on you had to download and install onto Excel. And then in 2013, it got integrated. So actually, the general availability of Power Query was June. It's on my next slide. It's June or July, July the 6th, I think it was, 2013. So we are celebrating an anniversary of Power Query itself, even older than Power BI. You see through history, it gets rebranded, becomes part of Power BI. It's also, I mean, just a quick note at the end, it's in Data Factory, it's in Fabric, it was in Synapse, it's in Power Apps, Power Automate. So Power Query is a really good language to learn, or a capability to learn, because you'll be able to use it in lots of places. So yeah, 6th of July, 2013. So what are we now? 12 years old. And if you want to take a look at the actual announcement, it is on there. it just says that they're announcing it's become generally available, and lots of people jump on and comment and say yay. And that's roughly what it looked like back in the day. I'm not sure. I think Excel 2010 that image is from. So it's gone through some evolution since then. Right. So let's start with data transformations. Power Query, as it says there, is for extract, transform, load. We use that all the time in data engineering. Sometimes we talk about extract, load, transform, but we're still doing those three things. We're possibly doing it in a slightly different order. And Power Query covers, you could say it covers all three of those, because it does, but really it's mostly used for extract and transform, loading into Excel for further analysis, or Power BI for creating into reports that you can share with people. The data factory, it's for landing somewhere for it to be consumed somewhere else. And it says transform data with clicks, not code. But it's not only clicks, you can do code, and the code makes things a lot more powerful sometimes. Sometimes there's hidden features in Power Query that the graphical interface just doesn't show you. And if you think about how many functions there are in Power Query, you could never fit them on a GUI. There's just too many. One of the, just go for the key benefits on the left, and apologize people who I wasn't sure on the level of Power Query knowledge, so I'm just going to quickly go through these. The benefits of Power Query, as I see them, is instead of the old days where you got a file in Excel, as an example, or CSV, and you would process it, you would clean it up, change it from UK format to US format, or vice versa, or European currency format into UK format. You would do all those independently, and they couldn't be repeated. So if you got something wrong, you'd have to start from scratch, or you have to take lots of different saved copies. So the ability to have something that steps through the processes, I find to be one of the best features, particularly as you can move things around, and you can actually go, actually, I don't want to do this particular transformation, and just get rid of it. Just exit, it's gone. So yeah, that's really cool. You can use it completely graphically. You don't need to use M code at all. You can get by without it for quite a while. Do you always need code? No, you could probably stay on the graphical interface for the vast majority of things. It connects to hundreds of different data sources, whether that's on the web, whether that's on your machine, your network. I mean, PDFs, it connects to PDFs. You can extract data from something which is traditionally not a structured data source. Although if you know PDFs quite well, there's two types. One is more or less structured, and the other one is just an image. So it does depend on your PDFs. Once you've got it all set up, and you've got your network credentials, so your access credentials, you can set it to refresh up to 8 times a day if you're on a pro license, up to, I think it's 30 if it's a premium. But that's only automated refreshes. So if you ever want to go in and click refresh, you can do that. There's no limit on those. If you wanted to set up a Azure Data Factory that calls a REST API that refreshes your Power BI data set, there's no limit on that. There are, when you come into premium, you will use up some of your capacity, but there's no limit of, you can only do 10 a day, 20 a day, 30 a day. Yeah, and then the M language really comes for your when you get into the depths, you want power usage. As you can see on the top right, there's slightly different ways of getting to it, where it's Excel versus Power BI. So Power BI, once you've opened Power BI, just to specify as Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service. So Power BI Desktop, you click on the Home ribbon and Transform Data, and I'll open Power Query. So Power BI Desktop has a front end and a back end. Power BI being the front end where you make your visuals, your DAX, your you're creating something for users to use interactively, whereas Power Query is the engine behind it. That's the ETL tool. So you have to open one to get to the other. Excel 2016 is exactly the same. You have to go to the data tab, get and transform, launch Power Query Editor. They're pretty similar and they look identical once you're in, which I'll show you in a moment. Typical workflow is connect your sources, transform your data, then you can join different pieces of data together, either next to each other by merge or appending them so they stick on top of each other. And then you can calculate columns. But I'm quite keen to get out of PowerPoint now and actually let's go to the tools we're going to be talking about. That's the more interesting thing. So it's a 3-pane layout, which I'll show you in a second. There's a left side, middle side, right side. Queries, the data preview. It's kind of a weird term because there's a lot going on in the middle, but really it's looking at your data as it's being transformed. And on the right is, so on your left is a list of like stored procedures in SQL world, kind of, or maybe even a view. But it's a contained piece of code. On the right hand side, it shows you the breakdown of that code. So let's go see it. That's the much more interesting, I imagine. So I'll go into bear with me. We'll go in Excel's version first. And you can see here, data, get data, and launch Power Query Editor, which is what I showed just a moment ago. Now it's great when you're doing presentations because Power Query Editor sometimes opens on the other screen. So let me just bring that across. Right. Okay, so here we have, now I don't know why I can't see the over here. Why is that? Because I'm going to click, that's why. Sorry. So this is what I mentioned. On the left hand pane you've got your queries. On your middle pane you've got your data preview basically, and on the right you've got your applied steps. So I've got a query called CT default. You can call it what you want. What you should be aware is whatever you call it here is the name it will have in the data model in Power BI. So this name does matter. What you call things over here on the right doesn't matter so much because it's only going to be viewable by other people who are doing engineering. So I want to show you this is a typical function a lot of people will find where they get their data from maybe a pivot table or I put CT for crosstab, if anyone remembers old crosstab. Now the way I did this is I did get enter data. I'll just show you now. I can create a table by clicking enter data, and I can say I want the this column to be called product, this column to be called month, and this column to be called no, that's not right, sorry. This is product, this is January, this is February. How's that? This is product A, this is product B. This can be, it doesn't really matter. Let's go 200, 150, 180, 300, and it really doesn't matter what values you put. And I'm going to create a new table called demo crosstab. And because I was selected over here on the left, CT default, when I've created a manual table, it will put it in the same folder as I was already there. There we go. So it's just appeared there, demo CT. And you can see automatically it did a change type. So I created it with no data types. I just, typed in those numbers as you saw, those values as you saw. Now they're all down as text type. Power Query then automatically decided, well, these are the wrong data types, and I'm going to change these to numeric and this to a text, which is great. And if you want to change that so it's in a better format for consumption, so we tend to prefer long tables, not very wide. for if you're going to do aggregation of large amounts of data. That's the optimal format. So if I do the transform column, I just want to show you at the top, you've got transform and add column, and there are some functions that also exist on the home ribbon. Now, interestingly, you'll see a lot of them duplicated. So if you see transform merge columns, so if I was to select January and February, I could merge those columns if I wanted to. Now, because I'm doing a transform, it would actually take those two and create a new one, removing those two. That makes sense? So your 2 becomes 1. Whereas if I did add column, the merge column still exists there, but what it will do is it will create a third column. So it will leave January there, it will leave February there, it will just create a third column. And that applies to all of the functions. If it's transform, it will transform in place. Add column will create a column. And there's reasons why you would use one over the other, which I'll go through. Okay, so we're going to transform. We're going to do, we're going to unpivot this data basically. So you choose the column which contains identity columns, and click the drop-down box for unpivot and unpivot other columns. There we go. So now it's in the more traditional format of a identifier on the left, a attribute and a value, key value pairs. So we can do aggregations quite an easy way that way. So that's the default way of doing it, where I just showed you, where you enter the data. Now you could obviously be pulling that in from a CSV or an Excel file or a SQL database. The act of unpivoting would be the same. It's just how you get the data in there would be different. And I've got some examples to show you some other ways of getting data in, and they do matter which one you choose. So this is a almost carbon copy of the one we just did. So if I show you the advanced editor, just to show you actually the advanced editor, what that is the full description here. This is literally the code that sits in this query. On the right hand side, it's broken down. So you can see here, I've got source, and it's coming from manually entered data. So that's that to that is all under the source applied step, and then the change type step is all of that code. Unpivoted other column is all that code. So I've formatted this to make it more readable. This isn't what it looks like by default. I should have shown you that before I deleted it, really. It's quite good practice to format your code. Well, it's not just good practice, it's better to format your code so it's just more readable and understandable. And the best way to do that, I find anyway, is there's a website called, I'll show you instead, actually. Yeah, powerqueryformatter.com. And you take your messy data. So this is what it looks like. And this is actually the demo showing you. So it takes your data like this, sorry, your query like that, and just reformats it. So I'm going to say I want to, can't undo it, I don't think. No. Let's say I did that. So originally this would have been the what the query looked like. You can see it's quite difficult to read. You have to go left and right. I'm not really sure what's happening where. And if I click on format, it just drops it into a format that makes sense to me. So each parameter that goes into, so table.promote headers is a function for Power Query, which takes a few different parameters. And here's another website for you to look at, which is powerquery.how. Yeah, this looks okay. And so let's have a look at the table.promote headers. This is a really good resource for, it goes further than the standard documentation. They're working through, they haven't got all of the functions yet because there's so many, but every single one I've looked at today it does have additional, it expands on, gives examples of how to use it. But you can see here, table.promote headers has a parameter of table and then an optional parameter of options as nullable record, which makes sense then why it's given me this row here, which would be for the table, and this row here, which is for the optional options. And it just breaks it out a lot easier to consume and understand what's happening in the code. If you're going to be looking at code, make it look nice because it's easier to read. There we go. Okay, so this is CT default, and it's difficult to show you them side by side, but if you can kind of look at that on screen, in fact, I can do it this way. Oops. There we go. Why that's doing that. Okay, and if I go to CTM, M doesn't stand for anything other than modified, really. I just gave it a code. And if I look at the code that's there, I don't know if you can see, I don't know why snipping tool's being weird today because it's not being friendly. Hang on. There we go. So I'll just put this side by side. On the right hand side is what I copied from the default way of doing it, and on the left hand side is where I've modified it slightly. And you can see it's almost exactly the same, but I want you to be aware of it because it's quite an important difference, which I'll show you in a second. So if you to manually create the file, create a table, which I showed you, entering data, there is a problem with the default way of doing it. So I just wanted to show you a better way. So if you wanted to specify the data types, you can actually use a particular Power Query format where you say, create a table. It's got 3 columns, product, Jan, and Feb, and those columns have these values. So this should look familiar to any SQL people out there. So you specify in the column headings, specify the values that are going into that table, and then we are going to transform the column types. The benefit of this is it's quite easy to come in and change the values from 100 to 150 to 100. So if you had reference data, you might do it this way because it's just easier to amend the data. Doesn't mean that this isn't possible. So if I go to the default way and I click on this little cog, which is at the right hand side of source. So the cogs are quite important because it means you can go in and change the original data that you went in. So I could say, actually, I want this to be 100, not 200. And it's fine. It will do that. I don't know if you notice, it generates a base 64 encoding of the values. So there is a limit to this in terms of how much size you can do in enter data. So it's not meant for used for big tables. It's for one-offs, something you might be keeping as a reference, something along those lines. Now, what I do want to show you is there's 4 steps on the right: source, change type, unpivoted, and renamed. So if I come to the manual table, you notice it's actually lost a step. So this is source, change the types, unpivot, and then rename. Now this is...
It looks like, here we go. There we go. We are now back online. So apologies for that, everybody. Twitch just knocked us off after about half an hour. So hopefully we're back. We're ready to go. And sorry about that, James. If you want to pick back up where you were.
Do we have any questions? Or
there have been no questions in chat so far. However, if you have questions, chat, it's a perfect time. Anytime's a perfect time to get them in.
Yeah. So just whilst waiting for any questions to come in, if there are any, this was the example of going into the M code instead of using the buttons, is that I could specify that I want the output columns from this function. I don't want them to be called attribute and value. I want them to be called month and sales, and that saves me a step. Does it really save any time? Probably not, but on bigger pieces, when you can save space by not having multitudes of steps being applied to the data, if you can, condense it within, it will have a difference when it comes to transforming the data. Okay. So just want to show, and so that was showing that you can override and give your own output columns. I just wanted to show you this. So this comes from. It's all going slower now. I'm sharing my screen for some reason. Okay, so this was an example of Power Query formatter, sorry, which I've already shown you. Look. What I did want to show you is a quirk of Power Query which might hang people up, and they might not understand why. So I'll do it here. So on this list to table formatted, there we go, convert to table function, I've called it table from list. I'm taking the source, so it's the previous step. So I should mention that in Power Query, every step references the prior step generally. It doesn't have to. You can get more advanced and do it a different way. There are people that say each step has to end in a comma, but just because I want to resurrect the old fight of commas at the beginning or commas at the end, just to demonstrate you can actually put it at the beginning or the end, as long as you have one between each applied step. It doesn't really matter. I want to show as well that you can put comments in your M code by using the //. That's a one-line comment. You can do multi-line comments, which I'll show you later on. Now, interestingly about these comments, because I'm commenting within a function, they're not visible anywhere other than if you look at the code. So that's a comment you've left to yourself or your future self or whoever's coming in the future. And you can see actually that we don't specify a column there. We put null, and they do have to put a null. And it means it will output the column 1. It's just the default first column gets called column 1. I then have to change the type, because the any type, if you see that ABC123, that is not a good data type because it takes up more space when you're saving the file. It's slower for Power Query to do anything with because it doesn't know what to do with it. Is it text? Is it a number? Is it decimal? Is it binary? What is this file? It just doesn't know when it's an any. So it's a good sign. Sorry, it's a good smell to pick up on. If you are looking at your data set, your data preview, and you're seeing any data types, that's something to be fixed, because everything should have a data format of some kind. So on this example, we change the type, we rename it from column 1 to words, and quite a nice function. We add an index column. That is really useful in loads of different places. Just to show, by default, well, actually, not necessarily by default. If I click on add column, you see at the top left, I can click on add a new index column. You can start from 0, or you can start from 1. You can start from any number you like, to be honest. And you can specify that it goes up by 1, down by 1. I see that most familiar to me as a VBA. Going back to VBA, last time I saw that kind of function. But anyway, so what I want to show you is something that does catch a lot of people out, which is there's an error in here deliberately. So convert to table works fine, but instead of null here, I've specified that actually the output should be a column called words. So rather than rename it later, I'm going to tell it now that I want this table of data, the column should be called words. So I've saved a step later on. Now the problem being, I copied the previous query for this. The problem being, it runs ordinarily top to bottom. So it's trying to transform column 1 into a text column, but column 1 doesn't exist. So it can't do it. So it would give you an error. So I just wanted to show you that. And also, yeah, just to show you this is a multi-row comment. So I showed you the // which is here. Here we go. There's also multi-row, which is, it's again same as SQL. /*, and you can type as many rows as you want, and you have to end it with a */. So I hope that's familiar to some people. I've just left myself a note. I need to delete this step, and I need to delete this step. Now I could do it in the GUI, and it will nicely sort it for me. But I'm going to do it here. So I'm going to delete. In fact, I'm going to delete all of this. Now, remember what I said earlier about each step should reference the prior step? Well, I've just deleted 2 steps. So just to show you that this step change type, that referred to convert to table, and rename columns refers to change type, i.e. the one above. So if I delete all 3 of these, well, sorry, both of these and the comment, then added index column needs to reference this. So all I need to do, if I'm doing it manually, is copy the applied step name and paste it here, because this was looking at rename columns. Now it's looking at convert to table. The only time you'd need to change anything else is if you deleted the last step, because at the very end of the advanced, at the M code, it refers to what am I outputting from this code. So you could actually ask it to do 10, 12, 30, 50 things. If you referenced step 2, it would just output what came at the end of step 2. Don't know why you would want to do that, but you can. So just be aware if you're not getting the results you expect, possibly you've manually edited and you've not referenced the last step. So I'm going to do this now. Click OK. There we go. It's just reworking. There you go. So we now have the same thing, essentially. Okay. Now, what I want to show you back on this manual data type, in fact, when you do change type, I need to be careful. And the reason for that is, and we'll also learn about a new function. If we do table.schema, and point it at a table or query, basically, it will give us the schema that's coming out the bottom of that query. So if there's 15 steps, 20 steps, it's the bottom step. It's whatever's in at the very end. That's what it will give us the schema of. So just pointing at CT default, you can see we've got 3 columns: product, month, and sales. Where the ordinal position of those columns, what type are they, text type, int 64 type. I'm just going to get rid of some of these other columns. It gives us a lot of information on schema. Now, the ones I'm interested on at the moment are this is nullable. So it's saying that product is nullable. Now, I didn't set that anywhere. It's just by default. If you do a convert to, so if you convert a column data type to text, it will make it a nullable column. And just to show you on the CTM, there we go. That second version, which I showed, which was virtually the same code with very small difference. You can see here, the product is not nullable. And that is important because if I do something like this, so the profile, there's another function, and I realize I'm whizzing through the functions, so hopefully some of these are useful. Table.profile, it's a real nice metadata view of a table. So this is pointing at a table called Fake Products Enhanced, which I'll show you in a minute. But that's got 3 columns: ID, price, and product name. But it tells me the minimum value for the minimum value, maximum value, average value. Now, when it comes to text fields, it can't give you an average text field, but it can give you the lowest alphabetically and the highest alphabetically. So that's quite different to I've seen in a lot of other products. Usually, if it's text, you can't see a min max. In Power Query, it does give you that. So get an average value for your numerics, standard deviations, counts. These all come as standard, null count, and distinct count. Now, I actually want to show you those because distinct count and unique is a thing that's something you should be aware of. So let's go to Fake Products Enhanced. And this is a column. This is all fake data, completely generated in Power Query. It was from a very clever gentleman called SergioMoro.com. If you take a look at his website, he's got a blog post about creating fake data in Power Query. So it's useful if you're just mocking something up, or if you want to see the impact of something. Let's have a look. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So I'm going to go to the bottom because I want to see the output. And this is saying there's 999 rows, because that was specified in the actual query. Now, I want to show you this up the top here. So let's turn them off and we'll turn them on in sequence. So if we go to column quality, this gives you this green, orange, green, red, and gray indicators. So it's a very high level view of what the data within my table looks like. I can see there's no errors in there, there's no empty values in there, and that's the same for all 3. If I go to column distribution, I can see, well, actually, let's go to price. I can see that, why is that not highlight? Okay, yeah, so it just shows you how many of each particular value exist within there, which is better if you go to column profile. So under price, I can see that there's 372 distinct values and 89 unique values. So unique's quite an interesting feature, which doesn't really translate across from SQL that well. And then you have nulls and blanks, 0 if it's numeric, mins, max, etc. So similar things you just saw on the table.profile, but a few extra. Now, Kevin, am I right to ask a question of the audience if they can guess what unique is compared to distinct?
Absolutely. So, anybody in chat, if you want to take a guess what distinct versus unique here means? There's a little bit of a stream delay, so we'll give people a few moments to get their guesses in.
Okay. Do you want me to come back to it in a moment?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So these tools are really good for just if you've got a new data source and you want to just pull it apart, see, have I got empty values? So the errors, and that's in relation to you've done something with the data. So you've changed the data type, for example. Now, if you change this particular column, so look, these won't give errors. If it was a date column but formatted in a US format, and I'm working on a UK machine, if I tried to format that as date, it would work for those which are the 12th day of the month and below, but it wouldn't work for anything above that because it would be looking for day, month, year, and that's not the type it would accept. It would find, and that's when you'll find the error count. You'll see that there's some errors, and you need to fix those because you can't load the data whilst you've still got errors. There we go. Yeah. So, and again, it's just showing that condensing down of steps. So this one, we changed the type, we renamed a column, we added a custom column. So it's a very similar thing actually. When you add a custom column, I specified here that it should be called product name. If I just called it column, if I didn't give it an entry and it gave me a default value, I would have to come in and rename that in a moment. So change type, add a custom, change type. So what you can do is do it in a different order. So you add your custom and then add your second custom and then do one change type step, because you can give it an array of change this column to that type, this column to that type. So you condense two into one. But yeah, just to show you, this is far smaller and hopefully much easier to understand. There we go. And again, it's all been formatted to make sense. Yeah, so it's generating a random price. It's good to get dummy data in if you want to just play around. And I'll provide this Power BI file if anyone wants. Sorry, this Excel file. The good thing as well is with Power Query, if you've written it in Excel, you can literally copy the code from here, paste it over into Power BI, and it will work. It does reply. If you've got multiple queries that are being merged together, you can't just copy the merged together one. You'd have to copy all the component parts, but they will work on. There's no difference in the code. So if you're on Data Factory or Excel or Power BI, your code's going to work. There we go. Okay, it's right. So I want to go back to the schema as to why it matters, and then I'll see if anyone's responded on the unique question. And what it is so the standard profile, which is just table.profile, that's all it is. And on the enhanced, if you can see here, yeah, it might be difficult to see. I'm going to put it in advanced editor. I've specified that actually I want to make some additional aggregate columns on the table profile. So I want you to show me how many are non-empty. I want you to show me the average character count, which can be quite interesting for if you're doing data quality assessment of your data source. So let me go here. So I can see actually from the cross tab I did earlier, we have month, product, and sales, and I can see min, max, non-empty, same as we saw before. Sorry, min, max, same as we saw before. I've got rid of all those other columns we weren't interested in. But I've now got non-empty. So how many of the rows are not empty? And what's the average character count? Now, interestingly, this product, min A, max B, it can't tell me what the average character count is. And the reason it can't tell me that is on product, the text type is nullable. Yeah, is nullable true. So the table.profile it doesn't know how to do an average because nulls would throw it off, it would break. You can't average a null. Whereas on the other version I made, CTM, you should see, well, I showed you on CTM that the product is not nullable. So here we've got A, B, but average character count now is able to do it. It tells me it's 1. So it's a clear difference. If you want to be able to do things like average character count or any text summarization on a column, it has to be a non-nullable column. So what I want to show you is the difference between CT default and CTM is so minor. So the default, just open up. The default here, it has Where are we? Yeah, so this isn't formatted the right way. But if you look, let underscore t equals type nullable text. So what did I change it to? Literally just took the nullable out. Yeah, so it's just type text. Instead of type nullable text, it's type text. There is no type not nullable. So you just, yeah, if you don't specify, it defaults to not nullable. And the other change I made is I didn't change the type from, because it's already text. So the default for all of the columns that we're creating is text, non-nullable text. So I don't need to set it again as text here, because that would still revert it to being non-nullable, would make it nullable. So it's a very small change, but an important one because it can make a big difference to your later stages of things. Look. And just wanted to show you that profile, which I find in the original profile is great, but quite hard to read personally. ID as a min of 1, max of 999, average of 500. I mean, it's okay, but I would prefer it a different way. And it is as simple as I said I wanted the attribute and the value. Sorry. Yeah, okay, so show me the output. I want to unpivot this column. So just go to this one here. This is this one, and I want to unpivot that column, which basically means take all the columns to the right, and we're going to make them rows instead. I have to, here we go, which gives me that, which is okay, but it's not perfect. So you have to go to another stage where you repivot it, which is kind of weird. So you unpivot it, and then you pivot it back the way I want to pivot it, which is I want to pivot the values out by the different entries that were in the column. Great name. Yeah, so take the values, sorry, the text entries from this column and the numeric values, or the output values, and that's what I want you to put in the pivot table, if you could think of a pivot table like that. So just, Kevin, did anyone come back on unique and distinct?
Yes. So we have an answer here that, or a question answer, which I'll expand on. Based
Yeah.
on the number of times it appears in the data set. And
Yeah, is that?
yeah,
Yeah,
my expansion would be that distinct is the set of values that appear, and unique is the collection that appear only once.
exactly that. Yeah. So for some reason it took me a while to get my head around, but distinct it's the same as you've been dealing with distincts in SQL for years. Yeah, it's how many versions appear in that column, and 89 is of those, how many of them only appear once. So it's quite a nice to get to know the spread of your data. So you have that extra figure there. Just conscious of time. Has anyone done the dashboard in a day, or are they looking at doing the Power BI dashboard in a day? Because it does include Power Query side of things, so I'd recommend it. I just want to know if anyone's having a look at it.
We'll see in chat, but I can say that yes, I have gone through a couple of iterations of it over the years. It's definitely worthwhile if you're getting into Power BI or Power Query.
Yeah, and it's really easy to find as well. It's aka.ms/DIAD, and that'll take you to an overview page where you can get to the learn resource for students. But you can also get the instructor content as well and download that, which is nice because it gives you the data sets and all that good stuff. Now, the interesting thing is I think they have got the some of their data is wrong. So I need to find somewhere to flag that up. But I'll take you through that in a second if I've got time. I just want to show you some really. I'll skip ahead to these really. which is we're bringing data in from, let's say we're bringing sales data in from Germany. Now in Germany, they store their numeric values quite differently. They have basically the dot and the comma are reversed from what we would normally expect to see. Now, if I was to change this now to a decimal number, it will error out. It'll give me lots of errors and say, let's add it as a new step because I'm going to delete it in a second. There you go. Errors out, big red line across the top. And if you click on the error, it tells you we couldn't convert that to a number. What I wanted to show you is let's type this. Let's change this to text. So I fixed the error. Now, the interesting thing is it still shows as red across the top as an error. And people think they haven't fixed the problem. And they have. What happens is that state, that color updates when you've changed to a different step. If I change back to here and then come to here in a second, there is no error, but it remembered the error from before. So then people think they haven't fixed the issue, and they have. You just need to click off and click back on. So that's quite a good tip for if you're pulling your hair out as to why you think your fix that you think should work doesn't. It might be that you just need to click off and click on to refresh, to recalculate that the profile at the top. Yeah, so it showed errors. So I'm going to delete that, which is why I did it as a new step, because if I replaced, so if I did change type, and if I changed that balance there to a number, and I then wanted to undo that, I would have to come in and manually edit it. I can't just delete it because it's lots of other things in there as well. So sometimes you add a new step just because you're testing something out. And the other thing that I see happen all the time is people do this. So let me just change. So I'm in the middle of my applied steps. I'm going to click here because I'm going to filter my job classification. And now I'm not going to click anything. It's got everything filtered. And I'm going to click OK. And it adds a step for filtered rows, but it doesn't actually filter anything. And there's no real performance implication, but it's kind of weird when you look down and you go, oh, filtered rows, what have I filtered? Oh, I actually haven't filtered anything. And I see that all the time. If you start to filter and then decide you're not going to, you should click cancel, not OK, because otherwise it'll record a step of nothing happening. But what I want to show you is so this is stored as text currently. If I have to I showed you I tried to change it to currency or decimal number, it didn't work. Now what I'm going to do is say, I want you to use the locale, or locale, I'm not sure how you say it. These 2 seconds. Yeah. Now it's the locale or locale of where the data has come from. Now this data has come from Germany. So if I say this data is from Germany, and it is of type currency. I've got some weird issues going on my screen. I just clicked OK because I couldn't click the button on OK for some reason. You see it adds a step which is change type with locale, and the only difference is, and you could do this manually if you wanted. So if I did, let me just try to do this. I'm going to delete these, delete this one. I'm going to change this one to currency as a new step. And you'll see I've got lots of errors will come up, but I can literally type in, see I put that comma and it pops up with, these are the parameters that go into table.transform column types. There are some, very few, I can't think of which ones they are at the moment, where there's actually additional parameters that don't even appear in this documentation. So they're undocumented parameters, basically. So I'm going to say I want it to be DE. Was it DED? I think it was. And now it's done it. So, but again, look, the error is cached. So it still thinks there's an error. I'm going to click off, click back on, and I've successfully changed to my version of currency. So from a different culture, and I've put it to my system culture. It's exactly the same for dates. So if I take a set of American data, which has been given to me with these dates, the 1st of August, 1st of September, 1st of November, 1st of what? Okay, it's American. So it's 18th of January, 28th of January. If I try and change that to a date, it will error out. It will work for the ones which are below the 13th, but it won't work for those that are above. But again, exactly the same thing. I would say change the data type using locale, and I say it's American data. Can you turn it into a date, please? And it's it works. So it knows how to convert from different cultures into your system culture. Now, obviously, if you were to process that data on an American desktop or configured as an American desktop, you wouldn't need to do that because it would just work by default. It would use your system's culture. It could be seen as good practice to always put in the correct culture. In practice, people don't really. If you're only ever used to dealing with your country's data, it's probably an overhead you don't need. If you are commonly multicultural data, it's a good practice to get into. Conscious we're approaching the end, I just want to show you this, which is you can basically you create a new query, and it's called equals shared, and that will show you every function that exists that Power Query is aware of, and every data type, every essentially it's what is the available to Power Query to do anything with. It's a list, so you need to convert it to a table, which is really easy to do. So I did it there for you, but if you see this list here on the top, well, you get a new ribbon appear called convert, and I can convert it into a table, and it does that. And then I'm going to remove any errors. Yeah. Because then if I wanted to show, well, if I wanted to see the function as an example, I can click on that, and it will show me the documentation behind that function. Maybe not that fast. Now, interestingly, that's loading all the data from my source files. I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, look. Oh, it's actually invoked the value, sorry. It's not what I wanted. Interesting. Anyway, the point being is it's there. Now, I mentioned earlier about it runs from top to bottom. It doesn't actually. It does if you use the GUI, it will record the steps in action, but Power Query doesn't actually care. It doesn't run bottom. It runs where you have to reference the previous step. The reason for it is V3 is a concatenation of V1 and V2. Yeah, has anyone done it?
I didn't get any responses from chat. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the drop again. I got to figure out what's going on there. But it looks like I didn't see anybody who had tried out the dashboard in a day. I did drop in the link, so anybody who's interested should go check it out.
Okay, cool. So just because we're on time now, I just want to show you two. So these are custom functions. Won't go into them too much. You can write functions. If you're going to perform a number of steps on a repeated basis, you can make a function for yourself. But there's also some great functions out there. So Chris Webb on blog.crossjoin.co.uk, he's kind of the god of Power Query. Been there since day zero, I think. But what this is a really good table where you can use it for your reporting, because it refreshes on a daily basis and shows you today's date, but also current week to date, current month to date, current year to date. These are all by default. And quickly, I wanted to show you the benefit of AI. Is I took that query from Chris, and I asked, this is Abacus AI, which one I tend to use. It routed it to Claude Sonnet 4. So if you use Sonnet 4, great. And I just said, I would like to take this function, but can you add previous day, week, and month to it? And it did it. It created it. It works. It was a one shot. It was no problem at all. So just to say, if you've got something and you're not quite sure how to work with it, Claude Sonnet definitely is really good. But just be cautious, obviously, if you don't want to put your data out there, although Claude say they don't use it, and also don't use what's generated without looking at it and making sure it's actually doing what it should do. Not so much of a problem with Power Query, big problem if you're doing something like PowerShell, because it can destroy your system. So don't do that. That's my time. I assume you've got jobs to go to at your time over there. Was it over there, did you say?
Oh, it's about 7 p.m. so Eastern time.
Oh,
so
okay.
we're about wrapped up. But
okay, cool. So I've got these additional features. I can show you them another time if there's interest. And I've also got the dashboard in a day. I just wanted to show you. I've got my version, which I think is better than the existing Microsoft version for a number of reasons. And I could take you through why, what they got wrong and why my version is better, basically.
Fair enough.
But that can be for another time.
Absolutely. It actually sounds great. We can talk afterwards about possibility of setting up something else. So with that, absolutely appreciate you talking to us, giving us that primer on Power Query. Don't know if you have any closing slides or anything else to include here.
Let's have a look. I think I've just got one that says thank you. Let's have a look.
In chat message, awesome session. Thank you, James. Yeah, I absolutely agree. This was a great primer, great session, and
yeah. So I've just got some join the community. The community is awesome for helping people. Practice. That's why I gave that generate example data one, because once you've got demo data, you can just have a play and do what you want with it. It doesn't cost any money to run Power BI Desktop. And the key resources on the right. Microsoft Learn's amazing. There's a great book called M is for Data Monkey. And then Excel is fun. I mean, Power Query, a lot of people just assume Power BI is all the resources you should read, but Excel is as rich, if not richer, because it's been around longer. And follow accountants. They are very good at Power Query, or some of them are, at least. That's it. If anyone has any questions, please drop me a line on LinkedIn. Always happy to help anybody who's got any queries.
All right. Thank you again so much. Appreciate your time this evening. And that's going to do it for this month for us with the Triangle Area SQL Server User Group. We do have Shop Talk coming up this Monday, but otherwise, August, we're going to have brand new sessions for Advanced DBA for our main meeting and for BI, data science, AI, and everything else. So with that, I want to say thank you again so much for everybody coming in. Apologies for the 2 delay drops. I'm going to look into that, see if I can fix it for next time. And until we see each other at a future session, everybody, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.